to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran fast vertical stems and professors from Penn watching eagles eat and pray like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia. Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some Birds with Friends. The early bird gets the worm but prefers getting turned like a turn on some Birds with Friends. Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
You know the term salt of the earth? I guess I screw up the term. I call them dirt of the earth. I said it like the most earnest way possible.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends on a Tuesday evening. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn, joined at the top of the show by the man himself, Coach Brian Flynn, wide receivers, Princeton University. How are we doing, Coach?
Great to be here. You were just here 2 days ago. Feels like you just left.
How'd those donuts, how long did they last?
I barely got through the door and they were gone. Yeah, I was just attacked by a pack of ravaged animals when I walked in my house and finished the donut holes. One item on the way home, one or the other. You'll never know.
That's right. Highlight of the week.
What was the occasion?
It's grinding tape like some football guys.
Ah, look at that.
And I would say
unnamed third party.
Unnamed third party, and I would say all three of us were just despondent at how much we ended up liking Lucas Van Ness.
Yeah, we were in the tank for like 10 minutes about it.
Yeah, nobody wanted that outcome, but good player. Zach, how are you?
Doing great. Excited for this pod. Appreciate Coach Flynn's time, and yeah, looking forward to another show.
Marissa, what's popping in your neck of the woods?
Not much. Love having Coach Flynn here. It's awesome. His list of topics is excellent. We'll have Dane Brugler later in the show, so it's a great night. Big Mountain Union episode. Yeah.
Yeah, Purple Raider Pipeline. We're going to have Dane Brugler later in the show. We talked about that yesterday. That keep in mind that the interview with Dane was recorded just after the news broke that Jalen Hurts had signed a long-term extension. But Coach, Marissa alluded to it. You sent us a whole list of topics, but you sent it to the Princeton wide receivers first.
Yeah, so this is why I don't talk any trash on text, because I frequently send text to the wrong people. The good news is they were in a lift, because they lift and they come in here and meet. So like I mean, none of them responded, and then again, this is how bad I am. One of my former wide receiver assistant here texts me, he's like, "Dude, are you okay? Like, what's going on in the wide receiver group chat right now? Like, why are you texting about Succession and the live Love Is Blind stream?" I'm like, "Oh, darn it, wrong group."
Yeah, because it wasn't just like one paragraph; it was like several messages with different topics. So I'm sure they were very confused.
It's also good. It's like somebody like that. It's a good way to know that this guy doesn't have a mistress. Like if he's
look at me, number one.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah, I mean, I go home and fall asleep in 8 minutes. Out loud.
Zach, on the other hand, is so good at technology. He can pull off anything. He's a big tech guy.
I do like technology. I don't understand the suggestion or the inference here, or the implication rather, but I will roll with it.
Okay. Well, Coach, I think we should start. I mean, we got Sixers talk, we got Succession talk. We can run down this list, but I mean, we got to start with the official wide receiver prospect of Birds with Friends. How do we feel about how the pre-draft process has gone for our man, Andre Iosivas?
Yeah, tomorrow, their big day tomorrow. Andre and Dylan Classy are both going to the Eagles local pro day. So they're fired up about that. Dylan and Andre both went to the Jets and the Giants. Andre had a top 30 visit with Cincinnati, which was a big deal. He's excited about that. So
good color scheme mix.
Yeah, I think it's gone really well. I like I thought Dane had him projected to a pretty good spot, maybe a little later round, but I think where he ends up is important as when he goes. So that was it's been good. It feels like it's been really long on my end. I can only imagine for him, because he's really been training since the season was over for us, which is the week after Thanksgiving. We finished early. So, but yeah, all the feedback's been great. I mean, anybody that meets him or talks to him, he's going to kill every interview. He killed all the testing, so it's gone really, really well.
What is the like the degree to which teams across the league are like, tapping into your knowledge of him, without getting into specifics?
Yeah, I've probably talked to either a scout or someone in the front office for, I think, pretty much every team, either at practice or on the phone. So they ask pretty similar questions. Like I can almost predict it's going to be, is he a track guy? I've got a bunch of
love the game,
I've got a bunch of how does he learn, which I want him to be like way better than me or you or anybody in your organization.
He got into Princeton, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, is he a track guy? Like he pole vaults. Is anybody you've ever met that can pole vault? Like, like it's the toughest physically. What he does the decathlon. It's the mentally and physically toughest thing you can do in track. So, I mean, again, just from my tone right now, like I'm answering myself with the same level of annoyance that I answer a lot of these questions. But a lot of these guys were great. I mean, a lot of guys I've known for years, because since I've been on the East Coast, whatever, it's kind of the same group of scouts that always come every year. So it's been fun, man. It's been good. It's been good for us. It's been good for the school, but more importantly, it's been good for him. And again, Dylan's done really well too. Dylan played an all-star game, did great. Again, he's had 3 workouts with 3 teams, so it's a good time.
I do like the idea of not to overlook Dylan. I do like the idea of like a touchdown celebration where Andre grabs like maybe the yard marker and uses that as a pole vault to go over the uprights.
He did get penalized once for excessive celebration in 2021 for he folded his arms after a touchdown, and the ref said he was folding his arms at the guy, which I said, I've never heard that in my life. I mean, I don't even know how you can do that. Just like
measured in at just over 6'3", 205, ran a 4.43, over the 85th percentile in both the vertical and broad jump. Great athlete, super great fundamentals. What more could you want?
Yeah, overcame his coaching for 4 years. Just got out of his way. Get it done.
No, but I do wonder sometimes when you see a player who has the measurables that he does, the production that he has. I think sometimes the small school label can get generically thrown. Like it can become a cliche just because you didn't play in a Power 5. There's X amount of development required, whereas I think that can often be a crutch for whether it's the 1AA level or even players outside of the Power 5. Do you agree with that?
I do think it's gotten, now again, I'm old, so I think it's gotten better since I started coaching and when I was playing. Like you see Division III guys drafted, which had never happened. When I was a player. We had a Division III player of the year when I was a freshman, didn't get drafted, and probably should have in the later rounds. I think it's gotten better. It's gotten better with the advent of the internet and the draft becoming its own independent industry. But it is still a thing. Like it's an easy thing to write. Like just like track guy is an easy thing to write, or hasn't played Division I, hasn't played Power 5 competition. So I think it's a lot of guys are building a file, and it's an easy additional sentence to add into your file.
Okay. All right, let's start going down these topics, Coach. Why don't we stick on wide receivers? What do you got on the top wide receivers?
Yeah, I think we've watched these as a group. I've watched them independently. I think Smith and Jigba is number one for me by a long way. I think the guy I like next best is Hyatt. They're different players. I think Hyatt's a home run hitter. He's a guy, again, when I watch guys as a coach, I'm biased, but anybody scores 5 touchdowns against Alabama, to me, that's as close to an NFL defense as you're going to get. And he was just consistently running by him and did it really all year up until when he got hurt. I think he got hurt last couple games of the year. Smith and Jigba was just kind of, even though he didn't play this year, was just consistently excellent all 2021. Even with the 2 number 1 draft picks in the wide receiver room when he was there, was still a guy who caught 10 balls in one game, 11, 15. Was just consistently getting open. I don't know, is he as top end fast as some of the other guys? I don't know, but I think he's just a complete player. I think of the slot guys, Zay Flowers is the guy I like the best because they were really bad on offense, and he still found a way to be productive. And again, as a little guy, you want to be a home run hitter, and he does that. Jordan Addison is kind of a similar player who I like, but not as much as Zay Flowers. I don't love Quentin Johnson from TCU as much as some. I think he's big. I don't think he makes a ton of 50-50 plays. I'm not sure how long speed fast he is. Even his home runs don't feel fast, which is weird. You don't see him burst and separate as much as, again, I think the top 4 guys. So I think that's kind of where I think to me, as first, second round guys shakes out.
With Hyatt, one of the knocks you hear is that like it's tough to evaluate him because of the way that offense worked and like the routes that he was asked to run. What's your response to that?
Yeah, that's nonsense. I mean,
Coach Flinn.
in breaking routes, out breaking routes, deep throws, short throws. I mean, have some imagination. Again, it's the old, is it Abraham Lincoln? Or I guess everything gets credit to Abraham Lincoln. You tell me, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I spend 5 sharpening my axe. That's how I feel. That phrase comes into my mind.
Sam Hinkie right there.
Yeah. Anytime somebody says route tree, I want to start sharpening my axe. Like, I don't even know what that means. Is there one route I didn't run? Well, then he's out. You know what I mean? Well, can you teach him? Do you got coaches in the building?
Well,
we can't extrapolate an additional route to the tree. What are we doing? That's
very, very, very Zach to try to steal credit from Abraham Lincoln and give it to Sam Hinkie instead.
In another 200
no, that
years,
was in his letter. That was in his letter. I am curious, Coach Flynn, because whether it's with Smith-Jabba or with other receivers in the draft, we spoke about this with Jimmy Kemsky last week, that the Eagles should be looking for someone who's not a high volume guy, someone who doesn't need volume, but maybe is more of a big play guy. Are you the type who views it like just build the best group of wide receivers you can? Don't worry what one has to do with the other, or do you subscribe to the cliche that it's almost like a basketball team? You need a point guard and a shooting guard and a power forward, and so to speak.
Yeah, I think I feel like we've talked about it before, but I think that's how you start. But then you take the best players that you can. I think the Eagles' offense is a little bit different because there's really not a whole lot of holes. Like third receiver probably is one. Then you take the best guy, because if one of the 2 frontline guys get hurt, you could roll them into one of those spots. So I think you start with a plan, but I don't think, especially with the Eagles are a good example. Like, you don't acquire all of your best players in the draft. A good amount of theirs are free agent guys or guys that got later, but get the best player that you can at the time, and then build the system around what he does well. Again, and there's no draft pick offensive skill for the Eagles that they're gonna build the offense around. Those guys are already there. The tight ends there, 2 best receivers are there. The quarterback's obviously there. But I think, I don't think it's like, well, we're looking for this specific guy to do this specific thing, particularly if you're at number 10, for crying out loud. When we were in here the other day watching, it was like, if you don't take the defensive lineman from Georgia, if he's around, we're nuts. This guy, whether we need the lineman or not, like, this guy's a different dude than everybody else who's available. So I think you start with a plan, but you also got to be open-minded enough. Like, we can't pass on a really good player. Again, I was when the Jalen Hurts got drafted. Like, what are they doing? Drafting Jalen Hurts? We got this generational player in Carson Wentz, who wasn't as good and didn't want to compete. And I think that's kind of goes with what you're saying there, is if there's a good player available, that's more valuable than the plan a lot of the times.
Right. Like, you don't draft a guy like hoping he can be your Zach Pascal when, there's another guy who could be like an injury replacement for one of those other guys.
And I love Zach Pascal. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he did the dirty work consistently well the whole year last year, but you can find, there's a bunch of guys that can do that. You don't have to take it in the first day, second day even.
Did you have something, Zach? Or?
No, that answers that question as far as the type of receiver. The Eagles don't need a type; they need a talent. So, but let's take a step back from number 10 or even number 30. Let's say day 2 sometime. And you mentioned some of the names, but outside of the top guys, who's someone in that in the like 60 to 100 range that jumps out to you as being undervalued or could be a better pro player than he was college player?
Yeah, the 2 guys, and it's funny because Bo's Wake Forest guy. I never remember his name, Bo.
A.T. Perry.
Yeah. Love A.T. Perry because he's a big guy who plays big. He's productive.
It was interesting watching him after Quentin Johnson back to back. Like, it does seem like he plays to his size more.
I mean, if you flip the uniforms, like, you would have probably ranked him differently.
Now he is 2 years older, I do have to say.
In this room full of truth here, when myself, Bo, and Shield get together and figure out the problems of the world. And then the other guy I loved, which was somebody on Twitter hit up myself and Shion's like, hey, watch Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss.
And he's a big guy who plays big. He runs away from some people. there's some of the stuff I read. They don't think he gets off press very well, but the clips I saw, he was beating man coverage in the SEC pretty consistently. I think, every year it's a down draft for some position. It's a down draft for receivers this year. It's a down draft, but there you can always find some guys. I think, and this is a sign of being old, but the more people throw the ball, right, which kind of every year it happens more and more at all levels of football, the more receivers there's going to be. You look at the transfer portal on our end. There's a ton of big bodies. There's a ton of receivers in the transfer portal. There's not a ton of O-linemen and D-linemen. And I think it's kind of the same way in the draft where you can find some good players later on at wideout.
There is a weird, just like outlier year of just a crop of receivers this year. There are so many smaller guys. I don't know what the reason for that is, but just a bit of a blip. Zach, have you watched?
Cedric Tillman's an interesting, an interesting bigger guy who I think is being a little underrated right now.
Have you watched Marvin Mims, Zach?
I can, of course. I mean, all the big school guys have watched.
What kind of question is that?
Yeah, but
I like Marvin Mims.
Okay, the guy who I think could be a little undervalued, and I know he's like a coach's nightmare. And I remember back during the COVID year, 2020, watching an LSU Ole Miss
Ben
game.
Simmons is
It was a shootout. There was this freshman on Ole Miss, Keyshawn Boye, who had like 300 plus receiving yards in that game. I think it was the SEC record thereabouts. And he's been in and out of the lineup. He's had a lot of stuff go on during these past 2 years. But man, from a talent perspective, that's an interesting one for me.
That was George Pickens last year. Like George Pickens had like 3 minutes of highlights and they were all awesome. And then there was like a story about how like he got in a fight in a game and scored a touchdown and got kicked out for a half and it worked. I mean, it's if you're good enough, people will put up with almost anything, so I think Butte's he's in that group.
Just to say it, because I think the reason Zach is mispronouncing it is on purpose because he doesn't want to say it. The last name is Booty.
Right.
And I said Butte,
right.
and I said Butte, and it's Butte. Yeah.
It's like Michael Bublé.
It's your duty to pronounce the booty, Zach.
Yeah. You know what? The pronunciations are all in the beast. I have no reason to get a pronunciation wrong.
Well, it is hard to commit every single one of those 1,000+ players to memory. But anyway, moving on. You mentioned Jalen Carter. We did watch Jalen Carter, and like we will see what again, this is Zach going to be telling us that we're being Mr. Obvious and saying that Will Anderson is a good player, but aside from whatever is going on with him personally, I mean, boy, does he just moves differently. It's crazy.
Different dude, explosive, athletic, smooth. He's powerful. He can run. Can play inside or out probably. Will Anderson is really good, but he looks like a steady Eddie guy compared to when Jalen Carter gets running around. Like it was absurd.
I got to tell you, Bo knows how to scout him, right?
Captain Obvious.
He's all over Jalen Carter.
I
was disappointed.
Tom's going to go down there and interview him and get it all figured out, and we're going to draft him. That's it. Ask 4 questions, and then we're going to be good.
So if you are, speaking less as a coach and an evaluator and more just as an Eagles fan, who are you sort of hoping they come out with at 10?
Yeah, I think that's best case scenario, or move up. I know it's a super easy pick because he does everybody mock draft, but I love Christian Gonzalez when we watched him, because there was just, when you watch all the top corners, the best guys never panic. Like they trust their athleticism, they trust their recovery speed. Gonzalez he'd be in somebody's back pocket and he wouldn't have to grab him because he knew even if the guy at the top end of the route separated, he could run him down. Like I thought he was really, really good. I think you'd be thrilled with him at 10. Really, any of those 2 scenarios to me would be ideal. Austin really wants to pick Bijan Robinson at 10. Which it goes along with his irrational thoughts about pretty much everything that has to do with athletics. But it could go along to Zach, your idea of just build the biggest offensive machine possible and take the best player possible. But I think there's some really good second round running backs or second day running backs too. I think could help out there.
I am settling in on, and I've written this in some of the things we've done, Zach, but I'm settling in on if they don't come away. I think it's there's 4 guys who I would want at 10 or higher: Anderson, Carter, Christian Gonzalez, and Paris Johnson. And if it's not one of those 4 guys, then I would want to trade down. I like Nolan Smith. I like Lucas Van Ness, but I would not love them at 10.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, Nolan Smith, I think, was on the snaps where he's really good. He's really good. I think the difference between him and Hassan Reddick is you see Hassan Reddick like overpower guys. Hassan Reddick can bull you and long arm you and do those things. And Nolan Smith was just super athletic and running people down, but it was a really short tape, and there wasn't a lot of playing with force on the edge. Where I think that's where I lose the Hassan Reddick comp, because NFC Championship game and really the whole season, he was going through people as much as he was going around them.
A quick Bijan Robinson question here, and this fits your area of expertise too, is that I do recall in 2017 talking to someone about Christian McCaffrey, and it was probably a person trying to spin me on the possibility that the Eagles might be taking him. But they said if you just put a WR next to his name, he'd still be a first-round pick. And the reason why I'm asking you this is because I saw in Peter King's column this week, Steve Sarkisian was speaking about Robinson and said Robinson could play slot receiver in the NFL, that he was the best receiver on the team last year, or maybe he said best hands. But that's a team that had Xavier Worthy, that had some really high level wide receivers, right? So do you buy like the pass catching ability being a differentiator when looking at Robinson?
I mean, I think it's a bonus. I don't know if it differentiates anything.
Okay.
Like I kind of throw those, it's like when people start talking to me about tight ends blocking, it's like, oh, great, he blocks. That's neat. But I don't think that's going to separate one guy from another, or, I mean,
I don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't move the needle, Christian McCaffrey's a really good running back. Could he have been Wes Welker? Maybe. But I mean, I think also what makes him is running between the A gaps, him out in space, beating man coverage against the nickel. I don't think he's going to be, he's going to be able to do it, but is he going to be a first round player doing that? Again, I'm a coach. We all gas up our guys, but I think if a running back can catch, great. But if he runs for 1,800 yards, that's what we're looking for.
To me, it's an extension of the Isaiah Simmons conversation. It's like this guy can do all these different things in theory, but when you get to the actual season and you're doing week-to-week game planning, like you're just going to put him in a spot and ask him to do something. Like, can he do that? It's like when in recruiting, we say, oh, we're going to recruit a guy as an athlete. Well, he's got to play for somebody. He's got to take up a spot. Does somebody here like him enough and can project him to say, okay, that'll be my guy, so. How about the quarterbacks, Coach? You've watched the quarterbacks as well. How do you feel about the top guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like CJ Stroud the best out of anybody. I think it's, maybe a little bit, but I don't think there's a huge separation between the two. I think those two guys are first. And I'm
him and Levis.
No, not at all. I think Levis reminds me very much of Carson Wentz, a more ripped Carson Wentz, which makes me a little nervous. And the one that was super interesting, and I want to say it was the first time we watched film here. I think it was being shielded. We watched Anthony Richardson, and on PFF you can watch big time throws, and then as a cut up, then you can watch turnover worthy throws. And if you watch the big time throws, it was like, this is the greatest player in the history of football. It was just, falling backwards, breaking 5. I mean, just awesome. And then turnover throws, you're like, oh boy, he's throwing blindly behind the formation. And so I think there's a huge
kind of
separation.
like our podcast reel.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, it's all usually like the last 17 minutes or so when you're on 6 screens and both like, I'm going to string this thing out for 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
But I feel like the top 2 are the top 2. I think CJ's the better of the 2. I've been wrong at this before. Way back in 1997, I thought Ryan Leaf was better. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I don't love anybody else. Levis, I'm not sold on. He has a bunch of.
There is another guy you like, though.
In the traffic. Who's my other guy?
You like the old man.
Oh, Hendon's my guy now. Yeah, Hendon Hooker. Birds, round 3. Hendon Hooker,
he can
back
play.
up. Yeah,
he won't be there Hendon in round 3.
I know. I was hoping like round 5 or 6 at the start, coming off an ACL. They're going to give you some gimmicky college football nonsense or college offense nonsense. We're going to slip right in there. He's going to be the backup. If he could beat out Ian Book, which he would by noon of day 2.
You could mentor Jalen Hurts.
Hendon was my guy, man. Yeah. He's too old, just like Hyatt's legs are too long. That was the other thing I heard in the draft. Like being old at quarterback.
Very old.
Oh, stop. I'm very old, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but I would draft you. I wouldn't draft Hendon Hooker.
If it was a podcast draft, yes. If it was anything to do with athletic ability, no, never.
Oh man, I played tennis today. Got dusted by this guy. He's in the wrong level. It was kind of nice to get just dusted and see like a higher level of play, but like the tennis is wearing on me. Too many. Like
Do you sign up and like you get an opponent? Like how does it work?
Yeah, there's like a pool of players, and you reach out to see who's available to play.
Gotcha.
But like my body is just torn apart.
So too much change of direction in tennis. Yeah, stop doing that.
Yeah, I feel like an Achilles soreness that like, is this thing about to pop?
No. That's how my knee was, man.
I don't want
that. And so a few minutes ago, you mentioned tight end blocking. This is a polarizing prospect on Birds with Friends. I feel like Darnell Washington, to me, there are not tight ends in the world who look like him. He's just different. And if you were talking about production, the best tight end in college football in a long time plays in front of him, right? Brock Bowers is that good. And if he's, Darnell Washington's 18 plus yards per catch. You know he can get downfield. He's a threat in the red zone. We've seen that. And in 12 personnel, if the Eagles go that way, he's a sixth offensive lineman. But he is raw and the production's not there. Where do you stand on him? Do you view it like, the old Bill Parcells earth theory that there aren't that many people on the earth who look like this? Or does the player need to have a certain amount of refined technique at that position for you to view him as a top 30 player?
Yeah, I don't think the refined technique, the issues I have when I watch him don't have to do with his technique. Okay. I think he's pretty well coached. The tight ends coach there is a really good guy, really good coach. Obviously, Brock Bowers is the best tight end in college football, and Darnell was really good. There's times when you watch him run, like he's not that he doesn't look athletic, but he doesn't look explosive as a runner, or as smooth as maybe you want. Now, he's that big of a guy, it's going to be hard to do that. And he may grow into doing that as he gets older. But I thought the first couple of clips on his film when we watched it were like, oh my God, this guy's going to be the greatest football player.
He jumps over that guy.
Yeah, you're like, and then there were a couple like he catches an over route and kind of like, doesn't finish the run and doesn't, again, all of this is nitpicking, I think, to an extent, but it was kind of like what Jordan Davis, I was that way too with a little bit. And especially after watching him play for the Eagles last year, it was like, there's some clips where it just doesn't, it looks like he doesn't just cut it loose and run and play fast. And I think that's the same thing with Washington. I think there's a couple other tight ends who aren't nearly the physical specimen that he is that might be a little bit better now. And that's always the risk, is it do you go for the guy that's the most polished today and has a lower upside and figure it out? But, again, he's just such a big guy that runs well. Anywhere in the first round, I think, is a big stretch, though.
It would be fun if we had like the topic bar, like on like part of the interruption or something like this on the list of things, because I've been looking forward to what my Uncle Joe is.
So this is my dad's favorite thing about the podcast. I just learned this. I didn't know my dad listened to this. So my Uncle Joe is my grandmother's brother. May they both rest in peace. And my Uncle Joe used to all the time. He was a firefighter. He was kind of knew everything about everything, but he'd finish almost every sentence with "What the hell do I know?" And that's kind of how I feel about this draft stuff. Like I have these opinions and I watch these guys, but like, what the hell do I know? Like there were people who were really good players I thought were terrible. And there are people I thought that were can't miss that, I think that's something that really nobody in the draft analyst space really kind of admits, like, hey, we have these really strong takes and probably 73% of the time we're dead wrong, outside of even with the top 10 guys, it's like, oh, I've been coaching football for 25 years. When I was my son's age, I'd read the draft guide front to back because there was no internet, and what the hell did I know? I still didn't know who was going to be a good player. So that's every draft season. I think of my Uncle Joe, we're looking down on us saying, these guys don't know anything. They watch 27 plays of a guy. How do they know he's any good?
Yeah, it's fair.
The secret it's all about. They call Jalen Carter and Ryan Anderson. That's the secret.
Right, and even then, we're probably wrong half the darn time.
Yeah, but it's all about trying to maximize the chances of your bets, right?
Yeah, it's being a weatherman. Just hope nobody remembers that you said it was going to rain yesterday. That's what we're counting on.
How are we feeling about Succession?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, best show on television. Now I'll tell you what, The Last of Us. Did you guys watch The Last of Us?
I did watch The Last of Us.
Episode 3 of The Last of Us
Where did
is
you
one of
find
the
this
finest
time?
episodes of television I've ever seen. Spectacular.
That's the one with Nick Offerman?
Yeah, with Bill and Frank. Yeah,
Yeah,
man. I mean,
great
just
episode.
wonderful. Oh,
Great
so
episode.
well done. But yeah, that's no spoilers, but the previous episode of Succession from this week, man, woof, unbelievable.
Very good. Yeah, no
It's like
spoilers.
2 seasons
acting.
behind right now. So
What are you doing, Zach?
working.
He's reading every article that's ever been written and
I
listening to
love
every
the
podcast that's
insinuation
ever
that,
been
that
written.
the people that are up on the show and organized aren't working.
That's not the insinuation. That's not the insinuation.
Sunday,
No, but-
Sunday night, 9 to 10 p.m., you're on that grind, Zach.
He's got Clay Harbor's podcast to listen to, probably.
Iosivas hater, by the way, Clay Harbor.
Ooh.
Multiple shots on Twitter on Andre, which Andre clapped back at him a few times, which tells
out
you
on him.
Andre never does that to anybody.
That's pretty good. What is Overdogs here?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm despite being like, one of my disappointments about the Eagles losing the Super Bowl, which were obvious, is that we weren't going to get Zach's next book, Overdogs, being the
Appreciate
favorites
that.
all year. And again, I want to say, I'm sure many of the guests on this podcast have purchased the book full price,
Thank you.
but I'm the only one that's confirmed it. I have for sure full price and read it front to back and enjoyed it and recommend
Thank
it
you.
to everybody listening right now.
That means so much, Coach Flynn. Seriously,
That is
it
too
truly
bad.
means.
And
a
it's
lot.
sincere. It
Yeah.
sounds terribly insincere right now, but it all is sincere.
Thank you.
We were going to have an athletic book of our best articles of the year.
That'd be great.
Instead, this came out.
Hmm.
Oh, for crying out! Ooh.
Yeah,
Austin and I were this is a true story.
For the
Zach.
audio
Austin and I
listeners,
were
it's
at Barnes
a
and Noble.
Chiefs book called A Kingdom's Dynasty.
yes.
Austin
With
Flynn
all
is
the
a-
athletic stories.
Austin Flynn is a big manga collector. Loves One Piece. So we'll go into Barnes and Noble every now and then. They had an Eagles display, and we hunted through all the Eagles book. Your book was not up there, and we hunted through all the Eagles books. Obviously, your book was sold out. We couldn't find it, but we were going to put it in.
Yes.
We're going to put it in the display. That's how loyal we are.
Thank you. A quick
Appreciate it.
Austin Flynn question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Big Sixers fan. A, I want to know how he feels about this team, and B, if him and his friends see a number 12 jersey, do they think it's Tobias Harris or do they think it's Josh Harris? Which one?
I'll answer the second one first. Tobias for sure, because
Okay.
Tobias Harris gets a limitless amount of grief in my house and from his friends, unless he scores 20 points and then he's saved the season. So, and I think Austin is cautiously optimistic, like he is every time this year. It's a very tense time around our house. We're filled with existential dread. Last night when Doc called the timeout 1 minute to the second half, I was worried he was going to throw something through the window. But, again, I think that game yesterday, man, hope springs eternal. Like we would have lost that game a couple of years ago. We found a way, and Embiid's distributing the ball. He's clearly the most valuable player. So he's higher on the Sixers right now than he is on the Phillies, unless they sweep this doubleheaders with the Sox. Then he'll be asking his mother if he can take off for the parade for the World Series.
Even though the
Zach
Sixers
had
owner-
about 30 hours to think of his big Josh Harris comeback, and he came up with when your son's friends see a basketball jersey, do they think of the basketball player or the owner?
It says
The
Harris on
guy
the back.
who doesn't
It
wear
says-
a jersey.
It says Harris on the back. Bo's point.
You nailed it.
Bo's
You really
point.
came through. That was time well spent.
Bo's point
The
is
jerk store
that
called.
fans are sitting at home cheering for the owner of the team. Right? They don't care. It's
I never. You're putting words in my mouth. I never said fans are cheering for the owner.
You said fans should be outraged by the owner here.
Yes,
I'm with that. I think it's absurd that dude owns the Devils and the Commanders and the Eagles. It's absurd. Like, what are we doing? It's like the guy with the Ohio State hat and the Michigan sweatshirt on. Like, what are you doing? You're literally doing that with your money. How do you explain that to your kids? Oh, we're big Commanders fans around here. Let's go to the Sixers game. Like, what? Rich people are weird to me.
Wow. Oh, Zach, are you going to defend your rich people?
All right, next topic.
Next topic is Kapadia Week.
What happened to Kapadia Week? When was it? Why aren't we honoring it? Is Shields not having it?
It's a good question.
I loved Kapadia Week.
Well,
it's gone.
I mean, I think it was canceled.
I don't even know what Kapadia Week is.
Well, it used to be when it was like Eagles Seahawks. We'd get a Kapadia Week.
Oh. Okay.
Or we just have one. We make up a reason and have one.
Yeah, we could.
I
mean, we don't need to celebrate him.
He's doing great work. So
agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, he's no Cliff.
Cliff's the man. Well, I'm just going to talk. I mean, Marissa's here, so Marissa needs some flowers too. The quality of the production on you two guys' pods is best in the country, bar none.
Thank you.
my first time on Birds with Friends, I'm pretty sure it was me and Sheil on the phone, and he was recording it on like an actual tape, like a play and record.
Sheil never did any technical work. Let's set the record straight there.
True. Point taken. Yes.
Sheil never did any of that stuff.
Maybe his wife was recording.
Let's be fair. Birds with Friends didn't exist. It was me doing the recording. First time you ever.
But you were out. Remember, my first appearance. I believe you were on paternity leave. Like you had just
your
had the
first
baby.
appearance was when I was on. Didn't we have you on one time during the season first?
I don't think so. I think I came in as like the.
Oh, you might be right. Sheil's going to be very angry about this.
How did the connection start between you guys?
So way back when Chip Kelly got hired with the Eagles, when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, I wrote a bunch of articles like breaking down the Oregon offense. And so Sheil was reading those as a way to like, bone up on the Chip Kelly offense, and then just reached out to me out of the blue, like, hey, I got some questions. And then it kind of became a weekly thing, and then I started writing the cards, and then I started drawing plays up for the post game, and then just kind of came from there. I think I think I'm remembering also that could all be completely made up in my head. But I'm
this is the first 24/7.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah,
great T-shirt, by the way.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I love that.
Coach Flynn helped me understand Chip Kelly's offense. I appreciated that.
Good podcast on Chip Kelly right now.
McLean's? Yeah.
McLean's awesome. Yeah. Very well done.
I agree.
Zach's like been there, listened to it 3 times.
On 1.5. Yeah, on
1.5. Yeah, I did.
Okay, we got a few more. We can go quick. Give us your Jalen Hurts thoughts.
Yeah, I love it. We should have given more money. Is there anybody left to give to him? I mean, you guys are so much better on the cap than me, but it feels kind of friendly-ish in the beginning with the guaranteed money, right? Couple years.
So I'll jump in here because I've been talking to people about this today. The contract, from the way I understand it, and I could be wrong here, it's essentially designed for them to give him another contract in 4 years, right? Like they're not counting on Jalen Hurts hitting free agency at the end of this deal. They'll give him another deal, and they'll continue pushing the money down the line, and the cap's going to keep going up. So they're banking on that. If you're afraid that the guy's not going to be there for the length of the deal, you want to have those cap numbers higher earlier on, unless there's so many votable years at the end, right? Yeah. Because once you cut them or you trade them, you're absorbing that cap hit. In the Eagles' case, this is a contract that's almost set up for them to give another contract 4 years later. Do you agree, Bo?
I do. There's one thing I want to push back on is the idea that like, the Eagles were not scared off by the way that things worked out with Carson Wentz after giving him his contract, as if it was like this big disaster. It didn't work out that badly. I mean, they had to eat a lot of money, but they got real picks for him, and they had him, and they were back in the playoffs a year later. Like it was not disastrous. I mean,
you didn't lose your job from it.
Like,
so, I mean, it's the old expression that a recession's when your neighbor loses his job, a depression's when you lose yours, right?
The guy who signed.
It's easy to say it wasn't disastrous. A whole coaching staff got fired,
but
right?
The coaching staff didn't sign the contract. The general manager signed the contract, and nothing happened. It was fine for him.
No, but I'm saying if you were the assistant quarterbacks coach there at the time, it was disastrous, right? But in
terms of the ramifications of the contract and the people who were in charge of signing the contract, it worked out totally fine.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
that's all. I believe Love is Blind is maybe the last thing on here. Coach?
I'm actually very excited for this one.
Yeah, this is so. My wife goes to bed very early, like gets up 5:30 in the morning, does CrossFit.
So does my wife. Same thing.
Yeah, right. So, and we do nothing, Zach. Well, you ride bikes, so you're better than me. You get up and do something. At least.
I'm just watching Succession on loop. That's all. I don't do any work.
You got to get caught up, Zach. So my wife, like she's a huge reality TV fan, doesn't watch anything live ever. But the Love is Blind finale was supposed to be live Sunday night at 8.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like telling us all weekend, like, nobody come in the back room Sunday night at 8. I have the TV. Meanwhile, Netflix drops the ball, can't stream it. It's like an hour and a half later, they put it up as not even live. It was a complete disaster. A huge
worse than that. I
disappointment.
wasn't up for like hours, multiple hours, I feel like.
Yeah. All I know is I went into the bedroom at 11, which she usually is asleep for like 2.5 hours at that point. And she was like, I just finished it. I just watched it. Complete disaster. She's like, how come they can, any other network can stream anything? YouTube can stream anything. And Netflix can't figure this out. Like it was
I was one of the people sitting there waiting with the screen that says like, we have a problem. We're working on it. And I was like feeling stressed for Netflix, but also I did not feel bad for them at the same time. Because I'm like, I've experienced some things not going live on the producer's side of things. But I'm like, how does this billion-dollar company not know how to stream something live? But I thought it was a good reunion. So
like everybody else can do it. Now, Marissa, are you involved in the Scandival drama?
No, what's that?
That's so you don't watch Vanderpump Rules.
Oh no. Shockingly, I don't. I watch like all the Housewives. But everyone's been telling me that the Vanderpump Rules stuff is just unreal. So maybe when I have the baby and I'm up like all hours of the day, that will be something I binge.
That's good binging time.
Yeah. I'm sure she would love it. So
yeah,
she's got to have a good mix of reality TV with the number of sports that we watch in this house. So
you got to raise it right. Yeah, we're about 50-50 in our house.
And then books are like down the road, right, Zach?
Yeah, you can't read for a couple years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a couple Saban books, Saban biographies that are good bedtime reading, but other than that,
which ones?
All right, Coach. What's our Sixers prediction? Why don't we end on that?
Yeah, I think the Nets will be lucky to get a gentleman's sweep. The Celtics are going to get the business in 6. If Giannis isn't coming back, whoever's left, I mean, we're going to the finals minimum.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, that's what's happening. So I'm speaking it into existence, right, Zach? That's something. Is that a thing?
That is.
Yeah, I'm doing it then. If
Growth
it's a thing,
mindset.
I'm doing it.
So every team will have made it to the finals. Every Philly sports team.
Oh boy, yeah, yes.
Oh, that's a shot at the Flyers for pretending they don't exist. But
okay,
hey, Blusty Bullies.
I'm pretty sure you said that the other day.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Oh, I did say the Flyers don't exist. Yeah,
I didn't say they don't exist. I said that nobody cares.
Maybe they land the number 1 pick.
Facts.
Big year.
Nobody watches that draft.
Yeah, shout out to Princeton Hoops.
Awesome, man. Men's women's basketball. Yeah, our men's women's basketball teams are awesome. We had a national championship wrestler. Our athletic department's awesome, man. Great people. Like I said, if you can't coach at this place, you can't coach anywhere. Great.
I was cleaning out my we're cleaning out my dad's house, going through a bunch of old stuff, and I sent Coach Flynn. I had a very nice coded rejection letter from Princeton baseball coach Scott Bradley for but he's got to get in the weight room. Like there are some D3 programs that would be really good for him. Like, okay.
He's still here, by the way. Yeah, just took a doubleheader or took a series from Columbia last weekend.
I used to work with his brother at the Star Ledger. Nice guy, Jeff Bradley. Yep.
That's how the email came through from Jeff. So there you go. All right. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time. We will all be eagerly awaiting to see where Andre Iosivas goes. Maybe he goes to Cleveland, and we can get a whole Iosivas Michael Dunn thing going on. He could babysit. It would be really perfect.
Be
great. High recommendation on Andre, man. Yeah, no doubt. He most responsible person you'll ever meet. And shout out Michael Dunn re-signed. Love it.
I was gonna say perhaps he gets drafted by Philly, and in the press conference, Nick Sirianni makes a point of noting how well coached he was by Mount Union's own Brian Flynn, who was and then Nick would say, who was then coached by the greatest football coach in college, by the greatest coach in college football.
And fun fact, I was coached by Nick's older brother
Yep.
my last 2 years of college, who was a fantastic coach.
You can go back to the archives in January 2021 to hear Coach Flynn, Mike Sirianni stories.
There you go.
No, not better.
All right. We're going to go to break, come back, talk to Dane Brugler, and keep in mind, once again, the article or the interview was recorded like seconds after the Jalen Hurts contract was extended, and Zach had a million things running through his head.
Now that spring is finally here, the days are longer, the tennis matches are outside, the flowers are blooming, and you can spend some time on your yard. What makes the season even better is Sunday Lawn Care. Sunday is everything you need to get the lawn you've dreamed of. This spring, go to getsunday.com/birds and enter your address to get a customized plan created just for your lawn. No trips to the store or hauling heavy bags since they strip straight to your home. All you need is a hose to apply Sunday. You can fertilize your whole lawn in less time than it takes to watch an episode of your favorite TV show. That's because your favorite TV show is YouTube episodes of Birds with Friends, and they usually last about 2.5 hours. The other good thing about Sunday, well, they only use ingredients you can feel good about. No harsh chemicals, no long waiting periods, or trying to keep your kids and pets off the lawn. Simply apply, let it dry, and you're back to enjoying your yard. How about let's make that third rhyme there next time? Simply apply, let it dry, be a guy. Eagle eye in the sky. How about that? Sunday is easy and affordable. Some lawn care services cost more than $1,500 bones a year, but Sunday's full season plans start at just $109. And even better news, Sunday is offering our listeners 20% off. Full season plans start at just $109, and you can get 20% off when you visit getsunday.com/birds at checkout. That's 20% off your custom plan at getsunday.com/birds. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Whether or not you feel like you need therapy, sometimes it's just good to have somebody to talk to. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And believe me, otherwise, like finding a therapist in your area is a very difficult thing to do. BetterHelp makes the whole thing very easy. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/BWF today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/BWF.
You're listening to ZB and the Wolf on WBWF Sports Radio 6969, where it's not about the calls, it's about the...
Welcome back to ZB and the Wolf, joined now by a dear friend of the show, the busiest man in sports media these days, Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Put out the beast last week, just put out a 7-round mock draft picks for every team in the draft. Dane, when do you sleep? How do you find the time, my man?
Well, I had this time period reserved for sleep, but then I heard you guys wanted me on. I was like, okay, well, forget sleep. I got to come on with you guys. So, this is the time of year where you kind of sacrifice the sleep and you save that for May.
All right, well, let's get into it, Dane. You had your mock draft for every team in the league. Let's talk about what you had for the Eagles. At the first pick, 10 overall, they take one of my favorite players in the draft, country strong Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. He's got real backup quarterback traits in terms of the kind of guy he is. What does he bring to the field?
Well, yeah, I took some heat when a couple months ago when I said Steph Curry was my comp for Bryce Young, and people didn't like that, and let's keep it to football. And I was like, man, in my mind, I'm thinking they're gonna hate it when I comp Lucas Van Ness to Cocaine Bear, because basically how he plays, a lot of power, a lot of explosiveness. I understand he probably won't be. It won't be universally loved as a draft pick at number 10 for a lot of Eagles fans. I get that, but I think you're getting a guy on the rise. You're getting a guy who is ascending and just figuring out how good he can be. A lot of traits that you want to bet on with a Lucas Van Ness. And so I think it's a natural, you can understand why Howie Roseman and his staff are going to like Van Ness as an option there at 10. And I think it's important to point out with this mock draft, I didn't do any trades. I just, doing 259 picks was hard enough. So I'm not even going to try and do trades in there as well. Good chance they don't pick at 10. But if they do, and in this scenario, Nolan Smith is gone, Jalen Carter's gone, a lot of those other defensive linemen that they're looking at. So Van Ness, I thought, made a lot of sense there.
Dane, long time ZB and the Wulf callers know that we love to run the football. And our phones are off the hook all spring long about Bijan Robinson. We've had callers say he's their favorite running back since Ricky Williams. And we all know how Eagles fans reacted when Ricky Williams was not the choice back in 1999.
Different kind of drug, not Cocaine Bear for him. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this, Dane. I hear the term generational running back. Is Bijan Robinson a generational running back? Why don't you have the Eagles taking him at number 11? And where can they solve? At number 10. And where can they solve their running back hole later in the draft?
Well, this is a running back rich draft, and I think most would be shocked if the Eagles take a running back at 10. And this isn't a mock draft. I'm going to do a mock draft, and I'm going to just so Eagles fans make sure they love what I'm doing for them. That wasn't the point. That wasn't the goal of this mock draft. Is try to be as realistic as possible. And I don't think that a lot of fans expect Bijan Robinson to be the pick there at 10 for a lot of different reasons. I mean, they haven't drafted a running back in the first round since the mid 80s. So, it's something that is probably not going to happen at 10 now. If they did trade back from that spot, becomes a little more palatable for that front office and more realistic of a possibility. But with that said, it's a running back rich draft class this year. And so as good as Bijan is, and I would have no problem, in my opinion, drafting him anywhere in the top 15 picks. No problem with that. But if the Eagles wanted to wait, they'll have plenty of options. Round 2, round 3, round 4, guys that they could go, if you want speed, you want power, depending on the type of running back you want. In my mock draft at number 94 overall, I haven't taken Izzy Abaconda from Pitt, who one of the fastest backs in this class, one of the youngest players in this class. A lot of reasons to be excited about what he could bring to that offense.
Second pick you have here, Dane, late in the first round, Alabama's Brian Branch. Tell us about Brian Branch, what he brings to the table. I guess played a little more nickel in college, but you've got him as a safety.
Yeah, and someone smarter and wittier than me can come up with a better, saying with Branch and Eagles, and I don't know. There's something there, but he's just a good football player, and I mean, I don't know anybody that watched this film and came away saying, nah, he's not that good. I mean, you want a guy that is a lockdown tackler, can cover in the slot, can be a post safety, gives you all that versatility that you want. And so, depending on the formation, the personnel, he's a guy you can move around, and the football IQ is off the charts. So he's, he played that star role that Mika Fitzpatrick played for Nick Saban back at Alabama, and gives you that versatility that a lot of teams are looking for. So to shore up the back end with a safety nickel corner like this, I think it's tremendous value at the 30th pick.
Every year we get calls. Why are the Eagles always taking offensive linemen and defensive linemen? Why are they always taking offensive linemen and defensive linemen? If they do that again in the first round, who are the names that our listeners must know?
Well, I mean, we talked about Lucas Van Ness there at number 10. In this scenario, I didn't have an offensive lineman off the board there at the 10th pick. So, they had their choice of if they wanted to go Peter Skoronski. I project him as guard, but if you want to play tackle, I think you could do that. He's a left tackle in college. That's where he's comfortable. I think his highest ceiling in the NFL is going to be inside at guard. And that's just the way he plays, the play style, all of that.
Paris Johnson can't reach the ceiling with those arms. You know what I mean?
32.25-inch arms. I mean, it's an issue a little bit. Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State. He's right there in that mix. Broderick Jones from Georgia. If you're looking for more of a right tackle, Darnell Wright. So offensive linemen, there'll be plenty of options there at 10 if they wanted to go that route. But Darnell Wright's interesting. If they wanted to kick him inside the guard for a few years, and then he's taken over for Lane Johnson at right tackle eventually. So, it's a name to keep an eye on. And then at 30, it becomes a little tougher to, understand, okay, who's exactly going to be there, who's going to be off the board. But we could see a little run on pass rushers and defensive linemen in that late first, early second with guys like Keon White, B.J. Ojulari, Will McDonald, Iowa State. And then also with the interior guys, Mozzie Smith from Michigan. He's probably going to go somewhere in that late first round, right around the range of, you look at the Bills, the Saints, the Eagles. I think somewhere in there, the Bengals, somewhere in that, the final 10 picks of the first round is where I think Mozzie Smith ends up. So plenty of offensive linemen, defensive linemen, the couple guards, Osiris Torrance from Florida, Steve Avila from TCU. They're going to be in that late first, early second conversation. So no matter how the first, 30 picks, 29 picks play out, I think the Eagles will find themselves in a pretty good spot to get somebody they want.
Talking to Dane Brugler of The Athletic here on Z, Begin the Wolf. Taking your calls later, 420-420-6969. Dane, you talk about those defensive linemen, Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
All of this pre-draft conversation, we don't know exactly what's going on in terms of both the evaluation and you. I know you're very plugged in. You're talking to people all around the league. What's your expectation for how far this guy's going to drop?
For his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, to come out and say, hey, we're not taking visits to teams picking outside the top 10. I think that's a little bit of an indicator that he got some good news from teams picking in the top 10 that, hey, he's not going to get by us. And so you look at the Falcons at 8, the Bears at 9, the Eagles at 10. I think there's a decent chance maybe he goes to one of those 3 spots. And that's if he gets past the Seahawks at 5. Or even the Lions at 6. And so he is a big risk reward type of player. You can make the argument he's the best player in the draft, but maturity is not guaranteed with these guys. And 6'3", 315, his block destruction, his ability to win with power, quickness, be disruptive. You don't find guys like this, every day. And, we've seen guys in the past with questions not pan out. On the other hand, we've seen guys with question marks turn out to be really good players. You think of the Tennessee Titans, Simmons, who they just signed to an extension. I mean, people don't forget before that draft that year. I mean, he was, he's coming off an ACL. He had an off-field issue at Mississippi State. There's a lot of question marks around him, and he's been nothing short of a Pro Bowl player since they drafted him. So sometimes these things work out, but it's no guarantee, and not every team will be in position to take a risk like that, like a Jalen Carter. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what team decides, hey, he's worth the chance here in that top 10 picks.
The last time the Eagles made the Super Bowl, they drafted a tight end. And I remember on this show, we were saying they already have a starting tight end. But I keep reading your reports that this is a deep tight end draft class. Who are the tight ends that you like if the Eagles do surprise and take a tight end at some point?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it is a really good tight end class. Would the Eagles go for a position like that on day 2? It's obviously not a glaring need, but looking at their history and, where Zach Ertz was when they drafted Dallas Goedert, could this be history repeating itself with, obviously Goedert is entrenched as the starter there. Could they take a younger guy to eventually take over? And, obviously you run a lot of, 12 personnel and get 2 tight ends out there and, you work these guys into the mix. But this is a draft to do that. And we'll see how many end up going first round. Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid. I think those two guys are going to go in the first. Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, Darnell Washington, Georgia. How far into the second do they go? One of my favorite players in the draft is Tucker Kraft. Dallas Goedert, South Dakota State, Tucker Kraft, South Dakota State. That'd be a lot of fun to see those two guys together. And South Dakota State, since 1976, they've only had 2 top 100 picks in the draft, both tight ends, Steve Hayden and then Dallas Goedert. Tucker Kraft's going to be the third. I think it'd be fun to pair those guys back up together. Sam Laporta from Iowa in the third, Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan. So, yeah, this is a tight end draft where I can understand wanting to get one of these guys in the third round, maybe even the second round, depending on who is available for them. And looking at the Eagles, they're always forward thinking. They're not saying, okay, what's our top need on the roster right now? Let's go get that guy. They're thinking, okay, as we forecast our roster for 2024, 2025, what's this position looking like? What's this position? And they draft accordingly for the future. So can't rule out tight end there with somewhere, one of those picks in the first 3 rounds.
Dane, I will see your Tucker Kraft and raise you my favorite player in the draft. We're talking about a 3-year starting cornerback in what I believe is the best conference in college football. Ran a 4.45. I'm talking about Iowa's Riley Moss, baby, the man who was going to end the affirmative action at cornerback we've seen in the NFL over the past couple decades. Tell me about my man, Riley Moss.
Yeah, in my mock draft, I had him going to the Giants. Seahorn,
classy. That's a good fit, baby.
Seahorn lives. Riley Moss is a good player, and he's a former state hurdle champ in high school. He's got the toughness. I really like him as a zone corner, but he can play a man. He's not exclusively a zone corner. Some teams do have him on the board as a safety, but nothing about his tape says, hey, I can't play corner. And he gets his hands on a lot of footballs. 37 passes defended over his career. There's a lot to like about the athleticism, about the ball skills, he's a type of guy that he gets offended when there's a completion on his watch, to his guy. He takes it really personally. So, this is a guy that really cares, plays a lot of special teams. So, he went in the 4th round in my mock. Would not be surprised at all if he's off the board somewhere in the top 100, 3rd round. He's in a pretty good corner class. He's one of the better guys outside the 1st round that you can get this year.
You said pretty good corner class. I want to follow up on that. You just spoke about one, but there are more, and the Eagles could be in the market for one. They'd like to think ahead. Like you said, they have 2 starting corners over the age of 30. If they address that position, day 2, day 3, where could they go?
Yeah, and in my mock, I had them going with Tyreek Stevenson, the Miami corner, there with that late 2nd round pick. It's a big athlete, can run, can play zone, can play man. He's comfortable in both. If they want to go more of a nickel route, DJ Turner from Michigan ran the fastest 40 this year at the combine. I think he'd be a natural fit there. This is a good year for nickels, and I know I had them taking Brian Branch in the 1st. So, depending on their vision for Brian Branch, maybe that's not a direction they want to go. Maybe they want to go strictly outside corner. And if they do, I mentioned Stevenson. Juju Brents from Kansas State is a king-size safety, 6'3", 200 pounds. The
Eagles had him in for a visit, I believe.
Yeah, the 3-cone short shuttle, outstanding. When you have those type of numbers, I want to know more about you. And you throw on the Big 12 championship game, it's not the most the most glowing tape for Juju Brents, but you can understand. You look at the traits and you say, okay, I'm going to bet on a guy with that speed, that size, that agility. You can understand why coaches are going to want to coach him up. Corey Trice Jr. from Purdue. Another guy that made my top 100 that I think not enough people are talking about. He's another guy that has size, 6'3.5", 200 pounds, 4.4s, was a 6'9", 3-cone. So, coming off the injury, as long as durability is not a question mark, I think you're really liking Corey Trice. Garrett Williams from Syracuse is a guy that's kind of out of sight, out of mind coming off the ACL injury. But you're getting, there's a big discount sticker on him. So, you're getting him at a discount in the 4th or 5th round. And, if you don't need someone to step in right away, I think that he would present tremendous value for a team like this. And I wanted to ask you guys a question. Was there a name this year that, from the draft guide maybe that stood out, that one of your favorites? I'll give you my favorite before I let you guys answer. A tackle from Jacksonville State, Ye Majesty Sanders. I mean, just a tremendous name. I mean, if we're doing a mock draft on names, I got to believe it's a top 10 pick this year. I mean, so many possibilities. It's like, he comes up the pancake block. It's he just kinged that guy, or loyal sub. I'm not creative enough for that, but I think there's a lot of possibilities for announcers and broadcasters when you have a name like Ye Majesty Sanders. It's just an all-timer.
You know what? One of my favorite exercises every year, Dane, is going through that beast and checking out the names. Just looking real quick, I see Iko Boyedo. That seems like a fun one.
That's a good one. Yeah. I want the scouting report from you as well, if you could.
I'll look forward to going through that next week. So his name is James. Go ahead.
I will jump in because
trying to be respectful of our guest time, but
we are a Philadelphia radio show here, and I always like looking in your beast to see who's from Philadelphia, and you brought it to the next level, because not just is the number one quarterback born in Philadelphia, as you explained there. That's great reporting there. Bryce Young, born right across the city line in Wynwood, but you also go as far as to say B.J. Ojolari's parents met in Philadelphia, and we all remember that from the Beast a few years ago with Aziz Ojolari, some other great Philadelphia nuggets in there. So recommend all our listeners check out the Beast. You can find Philadelphia to find all these different. You have sons of former Sixers on there. You have teammates of Eagles, former Eagles, former coaches. So it's all in there in the Beast.
308 pages in that bad boy. I don't know if I could read all those words, but there's a lot of charts and numbers too. So that's good stuff. His name is Dane Brugler. You can follow him on Twitter at DP Brugler. You can read him on The Athletic. You can listen to him on Prospects to the Pros and also the Journey to the Draft podcast. He is the man when it comes to the pre-draft scouting report process. We thank him so much for joining us. Dan, we'll talk to you another time, I hope.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, back with more on ZB and the Wolf next hour. We are bringing on the referee who threw the flag on James Bradbury in the Super Bowl for holding, to talk to him about joining the growing list of investors with Josh Harris buying the Washington Commanders.
You're listening to ZB and the Wolf on WBWF Sports Radio 6969, where it's not about the calls, it's about the...
Well, that'll do it for this episode of Birds with Friends. Thank you once again to Dane Brugler for joining the Nimwits, ZB and the Wolf. Thank you to Coach Flynn for spreading the gospel, spreading the truth ahead of the draft next week. And that's about it. We will see you on Thursday on Birds with Friends. We're going to expect to talk to Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni on Thursday, so we'll have some thoughts on that. We will have Turkeys to the Kingdom, Turkeys to the Draft Kingdom. And then next week, it's the pre-draft extravaganza. So, lots of Birds with Friends content coming your way. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. The Sickos on YouTube. For Zach and Marissa and Dane and Coach and Andre, we thank you for listening. We'll talk to you Thursday. And as always, we love you.